Welcome. I'm Francesca Fiorentini.
And I'm Wajahat Ali.
And this is America Unhinged, a place that is going to cover the chaos of the first 100 days of Trump's second administration. In other words, the second first 100 days. Waj, I think I'm confused. I'm lost already.
No, that made sense to me. What was worse for you, Francesca? The first 100 days of Trump's first administration or the last 100 days of his first administration?
I'm going to go with last, but only because I thought that we were all going to die from a global pandemic and that running out to grab bleach was the only solution.
That's okay. So I was actually going to say the first 100 days because there was a whole Muslim ban. I took him literally and seriously,
Yes.
and then Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller tried their best, and I was like, oh, well, will poor Muslims be deported? This is the same guy who said, I think Islam hates us. But now that you juxtapose it to the whole pandemic, I side with you. It was the last 100 days, but now we are in the first 2 days of his second administration. And do you feel any better, Francesca?
No, in fact, the first 2 days has felt like 100 days. So in a way, Waj, we've just started the show on Zeteo, but I feel like our work is done.
Yeah, but our work is just beginning. And speaking about work, for those who are just meeting us for the first time, the lovely Francesca, I've known her for a few years. This is the first time we're officially working together, but we did audition, folks, and we're going to share some insider scoops. About 2.5 years ago, at the tail end of the pandemic that we survived because we did not put bleach in our veins or sunlight, we actually took vaccines. We were invited to New York for a new type of politically incorrect show. 2 liberals versus 2 conservatives.
Rolling Stone was thinking about maybe they were going to actually be kind of like punk about it or like rock and roll, I guess, more aptly. And the show went nowhere, but why was that again?
Well, because this is a true story. I talked to one of the producers, and she said, we're having a really hard time finding a Republican sparring partner for both of you. And I said, why? She goes, because the bar is low, and we're just looking for a Republican or a conservative, a MAGA type, who's good on TV and just at the very least adheres to 2 rules. We're like, what are the 2 rules? Number 1, they agree that Biden won the 2020 election and they aren't a violent insurrectionist. I'm like, fair. I'm like, what's the other one? They aren't openly white supremacist. The bar is low.
Yes, we're gonna talk about that bar today. But before, quickly, I think there are people who don't know you and don't know me either. We know each other, but Waj, tell me about yourself. Where do you come from? What's your thing? What do you do now other than this right here?
I am a exhausted father of 3 children. I now drive a Honda Odyssey minivan. I'm 44 years old, and I have 1 foot in the grave because I actually shop at Costco. I actually now wear clothes at Costco, and I'm very proud of it.
You're a Kirkland brand dad. I meant more like, what are your credits? What are your accolades? But being a Kirkland dad is nothing to sneeze at.
Not just Kirkland dad, and let me flex for a moment, please. I'm humble, but as a child of immigrants, I'm trying to flex in and lean in with this chutzpah as a white man, as they think. I'm trying to just lean in and flex a little bit. I have a black Costco executive club card, Francesca. I know. Thank you. America can still be great, but before then, I started off.
By the way, no, I'm the child of immigrants too, and that is the ultimate American story. Especially for my Asian mom is oh, you've got a Costco black card, you've made it. This is amazing. We for my Chinese mom, Costco black card, yeah, it's okay that you never went into anything that makes real money.
But you're a comedian. No, you're a comedian. You're a host. You're a host of multiple shows. You're a progressive commentator. Tell them about yourself.
Yeah. I'm Francesca. You've seen me on The Young Turks on MSNBC. I had a special in 2019 all about healthcare in America. But since we fixed healthcare in America, the special wasn't necessary and it didn't go forward. But I'm also the host of the Bitchuation Room podcast, youtube.com/FrannyFio, and also a stand-up comic. So you can see me live at some spots around town.
It's we're gonna be introducing ourselves more and more. Thank you all for joining. This is the first episode, and listen, what we promise you is this: we will never bend the knee We will never kiss the ring. We will never whitewash or sanewash the lies, the deception, the cruelty, the hate. We will keep it honest. We will keep it real, and hopefully we'll do it with a sense of humor. And in the spirit of that, just to show that we're equal opportunity offenders, there's a new president, Donald Trump. The old is the new again, and it wasn't just billionaires bending the knee yesterday, Francesca. It wasn't just Republicans. It wasn't just MAGA.
Yep.
About you, but I was really disappointed to see Democrats normalize a convicted criminal, a twice impeached Bulgarian who was held liable for sexual assault, defamation, and fraud. And here's a clip, and let me know if you can make out what Joe Biden says to the man who incited a violent insurrection 4 years ago at the Capitol.
You know,
he said, "Welcome home."
I think we are in a time where so many people, including the now former president Joe Biden, want to normalize what is happening, as if this is not a man who promised to be a dictator on day one, and as we will talk about, is largely successful in doing so. But the fact that this is a guy who Joe Biden was saying was a threat to democracy, that all Democrats were saying we must do everything in our power to prevent him from winning back the White House. And then the answer is welcome home. I mean, I think that the coup has been complete is the thing that's been running through my head. If Jan 6 was the beginning of the coup, January 20th was certainly the finale of it. And sadly, I think we're going to see a lot more. But I don't know. I wish I could blame it on Biden being just old, let's be honest, but you can't. This is far too much leaning into a far right that quite frankly does not care and does not want to work with Democrats at all.
You know, it's one of this, and if you saw also before he said welcome home, you know, he also rode in the motorcade with them and he joked around with them, and there were other Democratic leaders there. Why? Because civility, Francesca.
Yes.
Because of custom, because of decorum, because of tradition. I don't know if you saw that video with Marjorie Taylor Greene on right-wing media today, where she was saying Democrats want to kill us, they want to shoot us, and then Chuck Schumer was like, but bipartisanship. And so the question I have for you is, what good is civility and decorum and adherence to traditions of institutions that now act as oppressors of the majority?
I mean, it really does feel like we're just out here protecting a bunch of octogenarians' legacies. Like, I'm sorry, but it does feel just like, well, my individual legacy is that, you know, I presided over the peaceful transfer of power. And obviously, I don't believe in not having a peaceful transfer of power, but to relish in that or to uphold normalcy for the sake of it when everything that is happening is fun. I mean, there is now the idea to denaturalize American citizens and to revoke birthright citizenship. We're not in normal times. And speaking of not normal, Waj, we were, I think, hours into Trump's second presidency on the first 24 hours. And there was an immediate rally following the inaugural speech. It was meant to include more people who were not able to be outside because it was, unseasonably or very seasonably cold. And of course, the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, who bankrolled Trump's campaign to the tune of $200 million or more.
$250 million.
Thank you. Do not ever do Dr. Evil at me again. This is a no Dr. Evil zone. But yes.
Can I rub my cat? Can I at least rub my cat that I have?
Always. I accept. I'm a big time cat lady. Shout out to all the cat ladies out there. And Elon Musk was so overcome with excitement that he did a gesture that could truly, will only be interpreted as a Nazi salute, or appears to be a Nazi salute. Take a look. Now, that was very quick and very terrifying, but there was a little bit more. Let's see it from a different angle.
Please.
And hear what he had to say. So there was a twice movement there, two gestures. And Waj, it's important to know that before he did the gesture, he said, I love you all, thank you so much, this could not have been possible without you, the voters. And then he said something like, you've saved a civilization. Now, if you're going to do what looks like a Nazi Sieg Heil, don't then follow it up with thank you for saving civilization. Don't then echo some of the trappings of the Third Reich in the sort of we're saving civilization from, the savages, the heathens, the Jews, etc. But there was
or also don't, I don't know, simultaneously go all in for the pro-Nazi AfD party in Germany, and also don't, buy a failing social media site X and then platform and give blue check marks to pro-Nazi content. And then, when there's a Nazi apologist historian who said that, the Jews were treated humanely and that Winston Churchill was the villain of World War II, maybe don't reshare that as saying, very interesting. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. And I just want to, before we get into what I think the real story here is, which is how the media really tried to ignore how blatant this action was, I just want to remind people that we weren't born yesterday. We've been around. We know what Trump's first presidency ushered in the day he was elected. Richard Spencer was meeting with neo-Nazis in, I believe, a conference room of a hotel. And also, there were people in the audience who threw up, the Sieg Heil, and they did the exact same movement. And simultaneously, there were Jewish headstones in graveyards that were toppled in celebration of Trump's victory, to say nothing of 2017 and Charlottesville. So here we are, and it's like, yeah, this is very par for not just Elon, but for the MAGA movement more broadly.
And if I may, just give some more evidence, right? Just for the sake of it. Donald Trump also quotes Hitler when he said that immigrants are poisoning the blood and that they have, quote, bad genes. According to General Kelly, his former chief of staff, he also praised Hitler as doing some very good things and one of Hitler's generals. Yes. And also right before this election, he quoted Hitler yet again and said that his enemies are the enemy from within. Who are those enemies? Let's see. And that he would unleash the National Guard and military upon the enemies from within. And also, just top of the dome, I've been keeping receipts, Francesca, indulge me. He also dined with Nick Fuentes, one of the leading white nationalist Holocaust deniers and anti-Semites. And he also then dined with Kanye, who was on his full anti-Semite mode. He dined with both of them, and to this day has refused to condemn it. Now, let's go to the sane washing part, okay? Let's see. I'm going to give you a choice, then, Francesca. You have seen two clips now where he went, and hit you with that exuberant.
The grunt was really upsetting. Like, I didn't need to hear him. It was like, what are we playing tennis here? Oh no, it's a Hitler salute.
I'm giving you multiple choice. You got three choices. That obviously, according to everyone else, corporate media, was not a Nazi salute. So, was it a Roman salute? Which, by the way, is also a fascist salute, which was also the salute used by Mussolini and the Nazis? Or was he simply throwing his heart out? According to Richard Hanania, who, by the way, folks, if you don't remember, had a pseudonym where he used to, wait for it, write white supremacist content. He said, all right, it looks like Elon literally was going through the motion of grabbing his heart and throwing it at the crowd. That little 7-second clip leaves that out. All right, you have two options now. All right, everyone who's watching at home, you got the Roman salute, you got he was throwing his heart out, or according to Batya Ungar-Sargon, as a person with a strong track record of criticizing Elon Musk, I feel extremely confident asserting that this was not a Nazi salute. Elon Musk is a friend to the Jews. This is a man with Asperger's exuberantly throwing his heart to the crowd. We don't need to invent outrage. And before I let you finish, Francesca, because people who have Asperger's, Daniel Dresner says, as a Jew who is the father of 2 children on the autism spectrum, I feel extremely confident in asserting that you haven't the faintest idea of what you're talking about. So you got those 3 choices. Recap again. Roman salute. Throwing his heart out. He has Asperger's.
None of them. I'm gonna go with none. It was definitely a Sig Heil or alleged Sig Heil. I will say though, it's funny that all the this Richard Hanania, whatever his name is, Hanania was the one who's like, look, I write white nationalist propaganda, and that is no white nationalism. And there is a part of me that's like, maybe he's right because of that. But it wasn't just people, obviously, on Twitter. It was also news outlets, right? So this is the Washington Post reporting on this gesture. Elon Musk gives exuberant speech at inauguration. No mention, absolutely no mention of the throwing, not even a throw your heart analogy, which I don't know. I've literally never heard of anyone throwing their heart. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, listen, I want to be fair, and we're going to share a lot with each other, with the audience and the comments. I'm 44 years old. I've traveled a lot across the world, across America. Never in my life have I once thrown out my heart like a Sig Heil. How about you, Francesca?
Yeah, no, never. And there's some commenters, Kite Oztrail, Miss Spocky my brother is autistic, nonverbal, never done a Nazi salute.
Oh, same with me, buddy. Thanks for joining us. And also have members in my family who are on the spectrum. Not once, Francesca. Not once.
Elon, however, has a response to all of this chatter about his salute. He said, frankly, they need better dirty tricks. The quote, everyone is Hitler attack is so tired emoji with Z's overhead. And he's sort of quote tweeting himself as having previously voted Democrat as some sort of badge of honor to say that he could never do such a thing.
And you're right, Auntie Lou, the same sympathizers that made fun of Tim Walz's son are the ones who are sympathizing with Elon, right? So you can go after Tim Walz's son, who's on the spectrum. They mocked him, they ridiculed him. You remember when he was so exuberant, literally exuberant with love for his father, and gave him a shout out. They mocked him and ridiculed him. But with Elon, this poor, richest man on earth, who has this history, this interesting history of promoting the pro-Nazi AFD and sharing and elevating Nazi content, surely, Francesca, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League.
Yes, I've heard of them.
The premier organization that allegedly combats anti-Semitism. The premier organization in the past year has gone after those pesky college students, those ones who are wearing the keffiyeh and waving the Palestinian flag and saying, free Palestine. Those who they've accused of being pro-Hamas or extremists.
Or doing the infatada. As it correctly pronounced, the infatada, my favorite.
With a little bit of za'atar is delicious.
So good.
But surely they would have come out and called it for what it is, correct?
I think so. I feel like at least it seems like it's a Nazi salute. So they should probably say something about it, that it was a bad, something in bad taste, or could be interpreted as something in bad taste.
With Elon's grunt.
Oh boy.
Read it out.
A delicate moment and a new day. And yet so many are on edge. Our politics are inflamed and social media only adds to the anxiety. It seems Elon Musk made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm, not a Nazi salute. But again, we appreciate that people are on edge. All sides should give one another a bit of grace. Oh boy. Perhaps even the benefit of the doubt and take a breath. It's a new beginning. Let's hope for healing and work toward unity in the months and years ahead. I can't say how I feel about this because I'm so angry.
Listen, in all seriousness, let's take a second here. This is outrageous, because in the past 15 months, we've seen this war, this ongoing genocide, as described by Amnesty International, as described by Human Rights Watch, which has killed 45,000 Palestinians. And now the Lancet came out with a study that said 40% more casualties. And we've seen the crackdown on pro-Palestinian groups, protesters, which includes, by the way, folks, many Jews, because many Jewish Americans have led these protests. And we've seen a spike in both anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Arab bigotry in the past 15 months, oftentimes by, wait for it, white supremacists and neo-Nazis. And you would think that same group that has crushed these groups would at the very least call this out, would at the very least say this is concerning. And instead they said this. I want to bring it up one more time. It seems Elon Musk made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm. Not a Nazi salute, but again, we appreciate that people are on edge.
Again, it shows you where their priorities are, and it is sad because we do need real watchdogs on real anti-Semitism, the likes of which I believe we just saw. And the ADL could be a good organization that was fair, and sadly, because again of the overwhelming policing around discussions of genocide in Palestine, it cannot be. And so I mean, pour one out. It's sort of it's very clear where they stand and what kind of anti-Semitism they think is real.
And can I say something? You know, on this show, for those who are joining us and those who are joining Zeteo, we keep it real. We will do the exact opposite, as you can see in the past 10 minutes, of what CNN did. I have to play this clip.
I just want to look at that salute that he gave again. Just if anybody missed it, we'll just show it again. He's just wrapped up here. You can hear the. All right, so we just showed that. We just showed that.
Right. It's worth salute. It was quick. I think our viewers are smart and they can take a look at that, but it certainly was. It's not something that you typically see at American political rallies, put it that way.
No, it was not something that you usually would see. And it was quick, as you point out. It was very quick, but it was in a moment of intensity for him as he came out dancing, and then he did that.
I don't know whether this is hilarious or terrifying, Waj. Like, truly.
I laugh so I don't cry.
Yeah, because it at one time I'm like, oh, they're so awkward because it's so ridiculous what he just did, and it's so obvious what this was, and yet maybe they're terrified. I mean, maybe they're scared of being sued, as we are in this moment where news organizations are kind of like bending the knee, or like paying out these settlements so that they can get back on good footing with the now incoming president. So you could also interpret it as that as well.
Well, to quote Born Identity, look at what they make you give. Look at what they make you give. But we're not afraid, and neither is Mehdi Hasan, who will be joining us in 10 minutes. But before he does, Francesca, not only did Donald Trump come home, tell us about all the other lovely, lovely pro-American, totally not treasonous, traitorous, or seditionist folks that came home.
Yeah. Yes. In the last 24 hours, Donald Trump has pardoned over 1,500 rioters who were in prison serving sentences for their actions on January 6th, where they stormed the Capitol. Many of them assaulted police officers. And of course, many of them were holding Confederate flags, wearing Holocaust denial T-shirts. That guy, by the way, was also pardoned. And so I want to take you through a few of the people, the insurrectionists who were pardoned. These are the people who back out on the streets, guys. Andrew Tate pepper sprayed police officers and hit one of the police officers with a metal pipe. He's 35 years old. He was sentenced to 74 months in prison, 36 months of supervised release, ordered to pay $2,000 in restitution. He pled guilty to one count of assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers using a dangerous weapon, a felony on December 20th, 2023. Again, he was armed with bear spray and a metal whip. And he was, of course, at the Stop the Steal rally, / was a tourist / was Antifa, whatever. I don't know. One of those things. But there's more. Robert Palmer. Let's take a look at him. He was, he pepper sprayed police officers. Oh, sorry. He attacked a police officer with a fire extinguisher. He was standing near an archway leading from the Lower West Terrace to the interior of the U.S. Capitol while their defendant threw a wooden plank at a U.S. Capitol police officer and Metropolitan Police Department officers protecting the Lower West Terrace entrance. He also was at the front lines of rioters confronting officers located within the LWT archway. Defendant sprayed the contents of a fire extinguisher at the officers until it was empty. Then he threw the fire extinguisher at the officers. So
very violent tourists.
Yes, super. I mean, sometimes you don't like the tour, the tape, and you just want your money back. But like, is there a way to say it? William Lewis was also pardoned. He deployed what appeared to be a wasp and hornet spray at law enforcement officers on the West Plaza, which good God, I don't think I knew about this guy. Hornet spray.
It's terrible. I mean, never ever get that in your face or your eyes. I mean, it's just torturous.
So this is
And
an
there's also people with
addition.
bear spray, in addition to people who took metal bars from the barricade, in addition to people who used the flagpole, the U.S. flagpole as a weapon. You know, Francesca, if I may for a moment, these folks, because we live in the United States of amnesia, folks. Donald Trump incited a violent insurrection.
Yep.
He worked hand in hand with Republicans. There was, in the Willard Hotel in D.C., that's where the nerve center was. We know that Ginny Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, sent a text promoting some of these conspiracy theories to Mark Meadows.
Yep.
All these people showed up. Some of them showed up with weapons, as Francesca just said. They attacked police officers who were injured. Some of them later killed themselves due to the trauma. They entered into the Capitol. They smeared shit on in the Capitol. Some of them came to try.
Please.
Oh, poo-poo. Sorry, poo-poo for the kids watching. And some of them tried to assassinate, thank God they failed, Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence. Mike Pence, the most white, Christian, conservative, Republican man on earth, who was a willing doormat for Donald Trump. But at the last second, thanks to Dan Quayle, remember that name, kiddos, Dan Quayle, Vice President, Potato. Dan Quayle told him, do your job. Your job is to certify the election in which Donald Trump lost. He did that one thing, Francesca, and they threw him under the bus. These people now are coming home. And Francesca, you and I go on right-wing media because we're masochists. We're told that Republicans are the party of law and order. Can they say that with a straight face now?
Absolutely not. And Trump was called on this earlier today. And he, you know, the fact that it's good we're asking questions about why they're pardoning these violent insurrectionists. But he immediately pivoted and blamed, of course, all the other criminals. Okay, yeah, but these are like my criminals. Okay, those are like their criminals. You know, my criminals aren't really criminals. They're cool because they're doing crimes on behalf of me, and I'm the top dog. I mean, it is sickening, and you gotta wonder about Republicans who, again, for a party that really loves to talk about being alpha males, have become all betas, willing to put their neck in a noose if it means that Donald Trump, will love them, or right up until the point where the mob comes for them, they're pro mob. This is the leopards eating face party, and they're all just playing Russian roulette, or however many more metaphors I can squeeze into this, and hoping that it's not them next. But who knows what he's going to ask them to do. And again, you've got people like Pete Hegseth, with even more allegations coming out about him now about, being physically violent with his ex-wife. Like, I guess the lesson is, in the second 100 days, Waj, get worse people appointed.
Some of our comments, Katrina says, but he was only going to pardon the nonviolent protesters. JD assured us. You are on point, Katrina. I feel like you are like our editor here, because you have a fantastic memory. I want to play this clip.
January 6th pardons, President Trump says there's a process. Where is the line drawn on who will and wouldn't be considered for a pardon?
I think it's very simple. Look, if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned.
Did you hear anything from JD Vance today, Francesca? Maybe I've missed something. I've been busy.
If you did violent acts and whatever, yeah, no, there's, I mean, does JD even, who's he? Does he even have like a role here? No, it's funny because MAGA went crazy when he said that they would pardon only nonviolent actors. And let's be honest, like, the right loves to talk about Ashley Babbitt. I think we should talk about Ashley Babbitt.
Let's do it.
There's no reason that Ashley Babbitt should be dead right now. And the reason she is because of Donald Trump. It's because of the lies, and not just him, that the entire party and that the media landscape and the right-wing news fed to someone like Ashley Babbitt for months and months and months, that yes, their country had been taken over in a false election that was rigged, and she was just doing her patriotic duty. And of course, when she was trying to storm a building, a Capitol Police officer did what officers do often. And yes, fired their weapon. And so, of course, she should be alive right now. But the blood is on the Republican Party's hands. I'm sorry, man. The people who hired buses to come from all over the country to descend on the Capitol that day. And Waj, they said, they were like, I'm ready. Are you? What are you going to do? We're not going to stop. This was tweeted out. It was put out on Facebook. The goal was violence.
That's right.
And they didn't know what was going to happen next.
And I want to juxtapose the hypocrisy. And I think it's important because everything is projection with Republicans, and every attack is basically a confession. Pondering Politics has a good comment here. Imagine the MAGA outrage if President Biden had pardoned a single violent BLM protester. You're not tough on crime. Oh my God, you don't care about law and order. And now they've released 1,600 traitors. People, some of them, like Enrico Tarrio, the one of the leaders of the Proud Boys, who literally was there for sedition. Stuart Rhodes, the dude with the one eyeball on the iPad.
Oh my God.
Leader of the Oath Keepers, right? These are right-wing militia.
I forgot about him. You know when you forget about someone and then you remember that guy exists?
Did the vomit come out in your throat right there?
He's terrifying. I mean, speaking of
sedition,
speaking of Nazis, like these are like legitimate white nationalists who, by the way, got a lot of PPP loans, which still really annoys me. Do you know militias got PPP loans under Donald Trump? So
well, Brett Favre did, and Tom Brady did, and militias did. But this is, just thinking about why this is so, teasing this out.
Yeah.
Why this is so terrible, right? First of all, you have all these traitors out. They weren't held accountable. But not only are they out now, and not are they most of them still, from what we know, both radicalized and believe the big lie, but now they know Donald has my back.
Yep.
I did the leader's bidding and he helped me. It's free reign. This is our town again. This reminds me of America. I want to say America during segregation, but let's be honest, even right now, where Black people, if they were, God forbid, out in some places after sundown, they could get lynched. It was, these are our parts. And if you're in Georgia and a Black man, jogging in your neighborhood, you could get lynched. So now what they're saying is, for me, this is Donald Trump's red shirts, right? Mussolini had his black shirts. Hitler had his brown shirts. If I'm them, I'm like, I can do anything for the next 4 years. I can commit violence with impunity. These are my woods now. I can beat you up. And I know that this guy that I committed an insurrection for, he has my back. I even took a fire extinguisher and hit a police officer and nothing happened to me. What are you going to do to me, lib? I own you. That's my fear.
We're gonna start a show on Zeteo. That's what we're gonna do, and it's gonna be fire. And look, there's gonna be points of levity. So I did want to introduce our next segment, which we're gonna make a recurring thing here, because, like I said, Donald Trump is the alpha male, and he has made every single member of the GOP his little boy, his kid, his beta male. And everyone lines up to kiss the ring. They deal with the smell. But there are some that really bend over backwards to get to humiliate themselves. They reach new depths of humiliation, Waj. And this was something that you created. And I let's just set it up here. This is our Reek of the week.
Byron Donalds.
No, who is Reek? Really quickly, before we get into Byron Donalds.
Right. So for those who don't follow pop culture, Reek is a character from Game of Thrones. He's a man who, starts off with nobility, commits some crimes, and then gets kidnapped, tortured, and then literally through his torture, his captor says, "Your new name shall be Reek," and he goes, "My name is Reek," and then he becomes literally a willing Reek and subservient beta cuck, to quote right-wing language, for his abuser. And this, I had many choices. And Francesca, thank you so much for being so kind, for giving me this week's Reek of the Week. Next week, it's going to be you. I had to go Byron Donalds. And the reason I had to go for Byron Donalds is because of this clip.
It's not just going to be that. I mean, when Americans see deportations or repatriations happen, they're going to be like, thank you. When they see the border closed, they're going to say, this is what I voted for. When they see peace starting to like break out again around the world, they're going to be like, this is the stability that we were asking for. Daddy's back. So, and that's what you're going to see.
Byron Donalds, didn't he want a cabinet position at some point?
Yeah, but right now, out of the 100 cabinet positions of Donald Trump's administration, no Tim Scott, no Byron Donalds. There's only one black person. Out of 100 people, 1% black, 87% white.
It's Diddy, isn't it?
Yeah,
is it Diddy? I feel like it's Diddy.
5% Latino, 7% Asian, and also a fact correction, because even though we give informed opinions, we want to give you correct facts. I might have said that Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, was there on January 6th. He wasn't in D.C., but he was convicted with the longest sentence of all, 22 years.
I don't think you said he was there, actually. I just want to say,
our producer's on it. Our producer's on it. So Mel's on it. Mel is our producer. Just to be safe, Mel, we're gonna make sure you're safe. But Tarrio was there with the terror enhancement. And before we invite Mehdi, I want to remind people, because we live in the United States of amnesia, that in the 2020 presidential debate, Donald Trump was asked several times to condemn white supremacist extremist groups, white nationalist groups. At least 3 times I recall he was asked. He refused to condemn it. But do you know what he said to the Proud Boys? Stand back and stand by. Yeah. And they heard, and many of them showed up, and now many of them are back home because they're pardoned, or like Tarrio, their sentence was commuted.
I do kind of want to go back to that Byron Donalds. I mean, you mentioned him, and I'm like, I'm fascinated. He just said daddy's home. That when we see the mass detentions and the deportations, we're gonna have this overwhelming feeling of daddy's home. And there is it daddy issues? Is it psychosexual? Is it, I don't know, pick your poison, but it is creepy. It reminds me of Tucker Carlson's sometimes you need daddy to come back and give you a good spanking. And I'm like, or just a hug, or some of these guys could have just been loved by their dads. You know what I'm saying? Like,
okay, before we bring on a very loving, good dad, Mehdi Hasan, you like that transition? I'm so glad you mentioned that, Francesca, because not that many people have talked about it. That last month, Tucker Carlson at a Trump rally literally said, daddy's gonna come back and daddy's gonna like dish out punishment on us little girls, and people clapped. And then Charlie Kirk of he's one of the
Turning Points USA
Turning Point youngsters. He also referred to Donald as daddy. But there's something egregiously disgusting about a black man calling Donald Trump, who has a history of racism, as his daddy. So listen, all ethnic communities have their chickens for Colonel Sanders. This week's Reek of the Week, Byron Donalds.
It's beautiful. And we're going to actually introduce a voting system. People can vote on their Reek of the Week, so it'll be good. But without further ado, the moment you've been waiting for in our inaugural show of America Unhinged. You know him, you love him. He is the founder of Zeteo News. The reason we are here, Mr. Mehdi Hasan. Mehdi, nice to see you. You obviously, Zeteo has been following every bit of news since Trump's inauguration, but one of the biggest stories has been this like last minute meme coin that Trump dropped just, for the day of his inauguration, that I was reading makes up a now massive portion of his actual wealth. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Francesca, so good to be with you on the inaugural episode of America Unhinged. This country has gone a bit unhinged, has been for a while, and I think the election result is a reminder of that. So good to have both of you taken on board some of these important stories. And when I see you both, and I've been watching you for the last half hour, I just think, thank God we have outlets like this, platforms like this, people like you. I'm so glad Zeteo is able to support you, because I'm tearing my hair out watching cable news. I used to be a host of cable news. I'm tearing my hair out looking at the front pages of our newspapers. I just saw a press conference today, Francesca, where Trump was asked about his shit coin, about the dollar Trump coin, and he pretended like he knew nothing about it and he hadn't made any money from it. Apparently on Friday, for a brief moment, he was the 25th richest man in the world. Of course, Trump has always pretended to be a billionaire.
Sure.
Apparently crypto made him into a real billionaire for a few hours. Look, I don't understand this shit, and or poo-poo, but put it in context, what we did do, and Zeteo tries to do this, give context to the news. Jacob Silverman, who's a wonderful writer, wrote a whole book about crypto, has done a Q&A. Thank you for putting up on that screen. What the hell is Trump? What is a meme coin? A guide to the crypto grift. He's written a very good explainer on the Zeteo website. Head over there after the show, guys. Don't tune out yet. After the live show's over, head out to Zeteo.com and check out Jacob's piece, because we are going to stick on some of these big stories, Francesca. One thing we are going to do, both through yours and Waj's show and through the general coverage you get from Zeteo.com and from the emails, is stick to stories, because the biggest problem, and Waj, you and I have talked about this for years, together, the media just moves on, and we're not going to.
Well, speaking about the media, you worked for MSNBC. I was an employee for CNN. I was a contractor. And, this was during the first Trump administration. And during the first Trump administration, at the very least, there was pushback, Mehdi. There was some robust pushback by Tapper, by Lemon, by others. I know, because they used to invite me on. We used to talk afterwards. And, it was flooding the zone with shit. And for those who don't know what that is, that's a quote attributed to Steve Bannon, a very deliberate strategy to overwhelm us with so much chaos that...
again.
And they're doing it again. Stephen Miller admitted that he's going to do it again in the I believe it was the New York Times profile, which is they know how media works. It's like the dog from Up. Squirrel, 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 right? They can't help but do the breaking news. SNL did a good skit, the opening skit, the cold open in the weekend, right? And so you just keep moving on. But at the very least, Mehdi, there was an attempt to fact check. Washington Post had it. CNN had it. Right? There was an attempt to tell people this is not normal. What have you seen in the past 2 days that suggests that corporate media and mainstream media, if it isn't bending the knee, at the very least is sanitizing Donald's return?
Well, there's too many examples to give. We'll be here all night, but just a couple. On Inauguration Day, and my good friend Oliver Darcy, ex-CNN media correspondent, in his nightly email, I urge you all to sign up to that, to Status. He made the point that he went through closed captioning for all the major networks and said none of them really gave any attention to Trump's history of impeachments and crimes, right? There was a normalizing of this inauguration. It was, hey, it's the 47th president who just happened to be the 45th president. There was really no mention of the fact that he was a convicted felon. Those words were not used on air.
Really wanted to be the 46th.
Yeah, exactly. And there was no mention of the fact that he's twice impeached. So he was treated as, my former colleague Chris Hayes made a very good point on MSNBC. He said the first Trump presidency was basically memory hold by a lot of the media. It's almost like he's a new baby out from the womb, becoming president for the first time. Not that we don't have a record. And Francesca, you reminded us of the pandemic, which has been memory hold more than anything else that happened on Trump's watch. 500,000 Americans died on his watch. Reputable studies suggest 200,000 Americans could be alive today if Donald Trump hadn't been president in that year, 2020. All memory hold. And instead we were greeted to, who's sitting where and where are the billionaires and all of that crap. And there was a great deal of normalization. You had people like Jake Tapper, who, Waj, you and I have known for many years, is actually one of the best, I always say, one of the best interviewers on cable. It's a low bar, but he's one of the best interviewers. And yet he was saying Trump ran a campaign within the realm of normalcy.
Wait, Mehdi, if I may, because I actually have a clip for you. Let me play this.
Before I bring in Daniel Dale to do some fact-checking on some of the things he said that were not true about January 6, 2021, I think it's important to point out that the Trump-Vance campaign in 2024 was a very disciplined campaign and did a decent job of depicting President Trump as somebody who obviously had strong feelings on the border, somebody who had strong feelings on inflation and a disruptor, but somebody who was within the realm of normalcy, which is not obviously what we just heard from the new president there in Emancipation Hall.
Very disciplined, within the realm of normalcy.
So
it was the mic move that was disciplined. Remember that mic move?
I don't want to. That was the Madison Square Garden rally, where the comedian opened it up by making ridiculously racist remarks about Puerto Ricans and many other ethnic and religious groups, where one speaker happily compared the rally to a Nazi rally, where Donald Trump, did things like that. That's all been memory hold. And I don't want to just pick on Jake Tapper. It's not about Jake. It's about the media as a whole. And Oliver Darcy made this point as well, that there was an aggressiveness to certain hosts in 2020, which is gone. Everyone is bending the knee now. They're intimidated by the lawsuits. ABC News settled before the inauguration. We're hearing rumors that CBS News, 60 Minutes, may settle over the ridiculous lawsuit that Trump's done against them about editing Kamala Harris's interview. He's suing a pollster in Iowa for a poll he didn't like. So everyone's very defensive. The idea that his campaign was normal is grading on a curve times 100. I mean, Donald Trump stood up in a live television debate in front of 50 million people and said, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. One of the most ridiculous statements ever made on a presidential debate stage, perhaps the most ridiculous statement. That's normalcy. I mean, this is the normalization of Trump, literally every minute and every hour. And again, sorry, I'm not just doing free plugs for the people watching, but this is why we need America Unhinged. This is why we need Zeteo. This is why we need newsletters like Oliver Darcy's newsletter. This is why we need independent journalism.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's important to find a place that's not going to gaslight you, because Trump's already gaslighting everyone. The last thing we need is for the news that's covering Trump to gaslight. I guess my question is why, Mehdi? Like, do you have any insights into, because we don't have government-run media. I mean, Fox News aside, we have a relatively free press in this country, and it's not like they don't have the funds to fight some of these lawsuits. And it's not like are they truly afraid of losing access? I mean, I feel like it goes the other way. It just feels like they're getting played so hard. And I guess my question is, do you even see a rationale for why they would?
Maybe before you jump in, just because you mentioned this, and just to give context, because even my wife didn't know, ABC News went out of its way to settle when they didn't have to settle, because George Stephanopoulos, when he described Donald Trump as a rapist, he was actually using the language of Judge Kaplan, who said there was no difference between sexual assault and rape for the purposes of the sentencing. Sorry about that. But just to let you know how far in advance they bent the knee.
So a couple of things. Francesca, you mentioned government-run media. Trump wants to buy 50% of TikTok for the US government to run with the Chinese government. Wow. What happened to the First Amendment there? Again, flood the zone. That should be a huge story. Any other president said it would be huge. It's like number 77 on the list of controversial things he said since Monday. The other thing about government-run media, you mentioned Fox. Again, sorry to plug Zeteo. We just ran a piece from Matt Gertz of Media Matters about how this is not Fox is not government-run. The government is run by Fox, right? It's Rupert Murdoch and Fox. It's Peter Hegseth, a Fox is going to be running the Pentagon, even though his second wife's sister just came out today in an affidavit saying he intimidated her. But he's going to be running the Pentagon. He denies that. He's going to be running the Pentagon. So Fox is going to be running the government. But look, on the broader point about the media as a whole, and there's many things going on. There is the corporate ownership, which is a big part of this. Noam Chomsky was right. Let's just say that for many, many years. Sending prayers and positive thoughts to Noam, who's not well. But Noam Chomsky was right about corporate control, censorship, the bottom line. A lot of this is not a conspiracy, right? It's just capitalism. You got to look at your bottom line. We want to talk about 60 Minutes. Why might they settle? Well, Paramount owns 60 Minutes. Paramount owns CBS News. Paramount wants to merge with Skydance. That has to be approved by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. The guy running that is a guy called Brendan Carr, Trump appointee, who was a Project 2025 author, who's been going around throwing his weight online, warning people, threatening people. They want to do that deal worth billions. Sure, they'll settle a smaller lawsuit. Same with ABC. They settle, 15 million is chump change for the ABC and their corporate owners. Access is a big issue, right? And I've always thought access is a legitimate issue, right? Journalists need to be able to talk to people. It's legitimate for a journalist to want to be able to talk to a source, even in the Trump campaign. But the problem is access for access's sake, right? The fetishizing of access when you get nothing in return. I'll give you one example. I was at an event earlier this evening in DC where a very prominent journalist said, well, look, today Donald Trump did a very long press conference with the press. On day 2, Joe Biden didn't. And it's like, well, yeah, Joe Biden should have talked to the press more. I agree. But this idea that Donald Trump is doing us some Democratic favor, what is the point of these Trump press conferences when he just rambles, lies, bullies the press? Today, my former colleague, Peter Alexander of NBC News, asked a very good question about the January 6 pardons that you guys covered brilliantly. And Trump just started shouting at him and told him, don't interrupt. And people hate this. And this is why people don't like media like you. And then he lied and said he won a landslide. He didn't. He won by one of the smallest popular vote shares in history. He lied. People support pardons. They don't support pardons. The majority of Americans do not want these people pardoned. So he lied. So my point is, if you're going on about access, what is the point of access to a man who gaslights you, abuses you, humiliates you? What are you getting out of that? What is the American people getting out of that?
Before you leave, Mehdi, let me ask you a question from our comedian. Thanks all for watching, by the way. And thank you for the $20 for the tips It goes a long way. This is independent media. It's grassroots. And this is from Pondering Politics. I think this is Josiah. If this is Josiah, he has a fantastic show on YouTube, Pondering Politics. It's a great liberal voice. He asked, and it's in line with what you were just saying, Mehdi, how do you think the media's coverage of Trump term 2 will compare to their coverage from 2016 to 2020? Better, worse?
Oh, it'll be much worse. And there's a very simple reason. Between 2016 and 2020, the bad coverage was a result of naivete, of wanting access, of not getting what was going on. There was genuinely an ignorance as to what Trump was up to, the corporate ownership and trying to be close to Trump for profits. This time round, what is fundamentally driving it is fear, right? People are afraid. Right, the most chilling comment Donald Trump has made in recent months, and he's made a lot. You mentioned, poisoning the blood and Nazi rhetoric. For me, the most chilling comment he's made since the election was the Zuckerberg comment when he was asked at a press conference a few weeks ago, "Do you think Mark Zuckerberg is sucking up to you and rolling over for you and doing all the things you want because you threatened him?" Any other politician in any other country in the world would say, "Of course I didn't threaten him." Trump said, "Yeah, probably." That for me is chilling when one of the richest men in the world is afraid of you because you said you'd send him to prison. When you've got media organizations worried, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski went to meet him in Mar-a-Lago. Brian Stelter reported, and I know Joe and Mika, they haven't told me this, but Brian Stelter reported maybe they were worried about their security. Maybe they were worried about an audit. A lot of journalists are worried about Trump people targeting them.
Yeah.
Jim Acosta, you mentioned the aggressive journalism in 2020 and 2016. Jim Acosta of CNN was one of those aggressive journalists. He's just lost his show slot. He's being put at midnight, right?
I didn't know
CNN. Mark Thompson, the new boss at CNN, British boss, is moving him to midnight, graveyard shift. So I think it's going to be much worse than it was, but it's going to be much better on YouTube because of shows like this.
Hell yeah. It's
Mehdi's a good promoter, folks. And he, in fact, did pay us.
The great Captain America. I could do this all day.
Dude, seriously. I also just want to say that just to all the viewers, like it means we have to get savvier as well in terms of obviously where we support and what we support, but also how we interpret news headlines. I think that they are going to try to give Trump a win wherever possible.
100%.
We saw that in 2016 and 2017 when they were like, maybe he's good. Now it's going to be, they're going to bend the narrative to make it look like he's got wins when he doesn't.
Yes. Do you remember when he would do a speech without drooling and Van Jones would say, "Today he became president."
Yes, of course.
It's going to be worse than that. They're already announcing infrastructure week. You know what's going to happen is all the things Biden did, and I've been very critical of Biden, as you know, as have both of you on Gaza, but all of Biden's domestic wins on infrastructure, on reducing pharmaceutical drug prices, Trump's going to do like shittier versions of that, and the media are going to go, "This is amazing," in a way they never did for Biden and the Democrats.
Emperor has no clothes, but he's wearing a fine silk robe made in China.
China.
Mehdi, before we let you leave, shamelessly promote something for yourself. Where can people find you? How can people support you?
Zeteo.com.
They're here.
Zeteo.com. It's the company that's behind America Unhinged. It's the company behind my show, Mehdi Unfiltered. It's behind We're Not Kidding, our podcast. Check it out. Support independent journalism. I just was at an event with a bunch of independent journalists. It's the only way forward now. You cannot rely on the Disneys and the Comcasts and the Paramounts of this world to save us in a time of nascent fascism.
Thank you, Mehdi. Look forward to having you. Thanks for inviting me and Francesca to host this. We're almost done, folks. We're almost done. This is
we strong-armed him.
Yeah, but by the way, for those who are watching, first of all, thank you so much for watching. This is grassroots. We're building it up from the ground up. This came together. This entire show came together in Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5.5 days. Literally, we got a phone call. We're like, we have an idea. And then we had the most hilarious 35 email exchange.
You don't want to know what the show was almost called. That's all I have to say. What the show was almost called is very fun. But I do think Unhinged very much works. We got
it done in 5.5 days. And so respect to the team. I want to give a shout out to Mel, our producer. I want to give a shout out to JP. I want to give a shout out to Omar. I want to give a shout out to Kieran. Give a shout out to Mehdi, who was very hands-on and has treated us with a lot of respect. And shout out to all of you in the community. And one thing we're not done, but one thing I want to set it up. I want to set it up for you.
Set it up.
It could be a lot, folks. It could be exhausting. It could be depressing. You can lose your will. One of the goals of fascism is to distract you and exhaust you so you tap out. That's how they win. That's how a strong right-wing minoritarian force defeats the majority. Toni Morrison used to say that the purpose of racism was distraction. So how do you not get distracted? How do you not get defeated? How do you not get exhausted? You need wins, but you also need hope. And hope is optimism with a plan, right? In Islam, spoiler alert, I'm a Muslim. We have a saying that inshallah is not enough, right? Have faith in God, but tie your camel first. Means do something with your own hands. So as we do this, as we go for the next 99 days, and we share with you the chaos as America decides to unravel itself because it just couldn't vote for a Black Indian American woman. As America is unhinged and we try to put America back up, we will give you examples of hope, of resistance, of love, of decency. And that brings us to this week's segment.
We're calling, here we go. We practice, give us hope. Now,
and Francesca was not a fan of that title.
Yeah, the music is a little too, like next time on Law and Order SVU, like it's a little too intense. But this week in hope, I guess, or this moment of hope, brought to you by the Bishop of Washington, Marianne Budd, who found an interesting grouping in her congregation as she preached. That would be the Trump family. And here is what she said when she had the Trumps before her. Take a look.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples.
Just want to
amen, because no one said amen after she finished.
Vibe check to see if people could hear that. If not, we can play it a different way. Did everyone hear that? I mean, okay, good. I have to go back through this. So it's not just that Reverend Marianne Budd was, said what she said in terms of there are people who are scared right now. And also the migrants, she didn't say this, but those people are being targeted. These are the people who, pick our crops and our food and help us, clean our homes or our office buildings. And watch the look in the faces when she says scared. Watch a little bit of the ghost of Christmas past come into Donald Trump's heart. It's a second, but you could see it enter.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now.
He looks down. You saw that? These like, ooh. And then JD cannot with this woke sermon. He is writhing in his skin. He's looking at Usha,
And Usha's like, stay on assignment. Keep looking ahead. Stop it, JD. This is not what we prepared for. And JD, look at the contempt. JD's face. I rarely get upset. Looking at JD's face, the fact that he couldn't even perform, he's worse than Donald in this moment. And it's one of the situations as we wrap up, we give respect to this bishop, this reverend. It takes guts to stand in front of Donald and JD and all of their brown shirts and red shirts who are so vindictive and so angry and so cruel. And from the pulpit, actually remind people about Jesus and who Jesus was and his teachings and how he helped the marginalized and the poor. And she said it with love and decency and kindness in her hearts. And as so many people are being cruel and as so many people are being mean and picking on the undocumented and trans, and we're going to talk about in the next show, which is going to be Thursday, 8 p.m., and relishing in cruelty, it is a reminder that the rest of us can be better.
Absolutely. I mean, I need that every single morning, and I need to watch those faces just sort of crawl inside themselves. But that has been the first episode of America Unhinged with me, Francesca Fiorentini, and Wajahat Ali. We're going to be here back on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on my time. My coast is represented over here, even though it's on fire. Make sure you guys are subscribed to Zeteo, obviously on YouTube, and that you are liking and sharing the stream and commenting. We're going to do our best to reply to the comments. Also, again, we're going to be taking polls for your Reek of the week. And
Q&A. We're going to be doing Q&A. This is just starting up, folks. This show came together in literally 5 days. So thanks for joining us. And also next week, we have Prem Tucker. So this week, I forgot. This Thursday, 8 p.m. See, this is 5 days. This Thursday, 8 p.m. live on YouTube. We're going to be joined by Zeteo, political correspondent Prem Tucker. He does fantastic work. Subscribe to Zeteo, follow us, subscribe to Fran. Fran is on all the social medias.
At Franny Fio, watch my show Tuesday, Wednesday, Fridays. That's the Bitchuation Room, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern.
And if you want to read something, read me at the Left Hook Substack. But
hell yeah.
Until next Thursday, until this Thursday, 8 p.m.
Keep your screws tight.
Yeah, Francesca.
That's my sign off. Keep your screws tight.